our workforce will require, 95% of our jobs require technological skills. But yet the school finance laws have not been updated to account for these costs of services. They have not been updated to account for the regional costs that are beyond school districts' control that we have to absorb. Most school districts like Austin have not been fully restored from the $5.4 billion worth of cuts in 2011. So we're here today from no sort of doing of our own, but because we're structurally designed to underfund public education. We went to the state Supreme Court with a lawsuit asserting that the school funding system is not providing a suitable or an adequate provision of monies and revenue to support the general diffusion of knowledge. But unfortunately, those efforts did not prevail. And so I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that there's a subsequent meeting that's happening next door with our Director of Intergovernmental Affairs to sort of put together a strategy to sort of compel the legislature to take action to put more funding where it's needed into public education. We all agree our teachers need to be paid more. We all agree we don't want to close schools. We all agree that our students have unique needs and we want to maintain our specialized programming that makes Austin so unique, so great. We want to continue to make the progress that we're seeing in our students with record graduation rates. And we know that many of our students have equity gaps. We have students that are not meeting proficiency gaps, and we're taking almost $1 million in lifetime earnings every time students are not prepared to go on to post-secondary achievement and results into college or certified careers. And so I just hope that with all this fervor and attention around our budget and financial condition, that we can take some of this effort towards the state level, which controls how much every school district gets. We only get a certain amount in the pot. That pot is set by the legislature. It accounts for the wealth, the property wealth of a school district. Doesn't account for the wealth of a student, right? Just property wealth. And because Austin happens to be property wealthy, that means we're getting ready to send upwards of $1 billion to the state under recapture laws. We don't even get to keep that money. We're sending more to the state than we actually collect in local revenue. And so while we understand the need to equalize, and every student in the state deserves its fair share of the funding, it does put us in an untenable situation with what we're facing in terms of budget challenges. And so I really compel you to work with our Director of Intergovernmental and the BUDS and really learn about our legislative issues. We're trying to get simple things like funding for transportation because we don't get it as a Chapter 41, despite the fact that we spend almost $28 million in transportation costs that we have to absorb within our budget. And our teacher salaries are not competitive with even our regional counterparts here in the local metropolitan area, local Austin MSA area. And so I had to take the opportunity because we have such a great crowd, and I thank you for being here. These are hard decisions. Nobody wants to make them. We have to stabilize our budget. But certainly, I'm hopeful that the Austin community will start to make its voice heard at the state level, where they actually control the purse strings on what every school district gets in the state, especially Austin. So with that, I'm going to turn that over to our tri-chair so they can start the meeting.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you to everyone who came here, and thank you especially to our task force for the months of work you put into this task force. So our objectives tonight are to discuss staffing and compensation committee recommendations, review results of status check survey, coalesce around options to put forth as recommendations, and refine the language. Someone left their keys at the sign-in table. I was just asked to announce that. And our task force have agreements, which, in the interest of time, I'm not going to read aloud, but we are going to be honoring those agreements. And I am just about to pass the mic to my tri-chair, Kevin Garcia, and we'll enter into public comment for 15 minutes.
Good evening. Also, I want to speak to you all directly since this is public comment. Public comment is our opportunity, obviously, to hear from you all, the various stakeholders in the community, in the Austin area, and we have, definitely an importance in this meeting today. So for the public comment, we're going to have 15 minutes tonight. There have been 7 registration slots are made available, allowing each speaker 2 minutes. We can fit in additional speakers if there's time left over. The district has standardized public comment for all committees. Our agendas are posted at least 72 hours prior to our meetings to allow the public to see our agenda topics, to enable them to make comments regarding the community's deliberations. You can visit the district's BSTF website at austinISD.org /advisory-bodies/BSTF to view past meeting notes, materials, and upcoming information. During public comment or any other part of the meeting, there is not a back and forth conversation with members of the public. We ask both the committee members and the public to respect that boundary. It keeps us compliant with district policy and the Texas Open Meetings Act. After public comment has concluded, speakers are welcome to remain, but no further opportunities to address the advisory body will be provided during this meeting. If you were unable to sign up for public comment, or if you prefer to provide feedback in writing, there are comment forms at the sign-in table. Your written comments will be compiled and shared with task force members for consideration. Let's start with the first registered speaker, Jean Patton.
Hi, my name is Jean Patton. I'm a junior at McCallum High School, and I'm here tonight to encourage the task force to recommend maintaining budget for magnet programs at AISD schools and keeping high schools on an AB block schedule. First, with regards to the magnet programs, here at McCallum, I am lucky enough to have access to one of these programs, the McCallum Fine Arts Academy, and so I can tell you firsthand that not only do these programs afford non-academy students like myself the opportunity to just as good of an arts education as majors would receive, but that it also opens opportunities for students who are not zoned to a magnet school to transfer to one through applying to the magnet program, thus giving those students a better opportunity for an arts education than they may have gotten at the school they were zoned to. These students, this diversity of student body strengthens our schools, and these transfer students will be the most severely impacted if funding is cut or if these programs are closed. Incidentally, magnets, research has shown that magnets educate at a lower cost per students than non-magnet schools. Now to the 7-period day. I believe that if AISD switches to a 7-period day, students such as myself will receive a lower quality of education. Our teachers will be stretched more thinly with less conference time to prepare for classes, and it will remove the in-depth learning that an AB block gives. For instance, in English, we might not be able to explore literature as deeply in 45 minutes, or in a class like tech theater, might not be able to get through building an important set piece. Once again, I encourage the task force to maintain funding for magnet programs at AISD schools and keep high schools on an AB block schedule. Thank you.
And apologies if I mispronounce any of the speakers' names, please correct me. Our second speaker for the evening is Denali Jah.
Okay. When I first moved to Austin, I had a couple of very big decisions to make. Foremost among those was what high school was I going to go to. And in the end, I was kind of set between going to LASA and going to McCallum. The tiebreaker for me was the Fine Arts Academy. It was very important to me because when I was in middle school, I was part of my orchestra. We only had 11 students inside that orchestra, but every single concert was awesome. At the end of it, I felt really connected to my peers, and I really appreciated the opportunity every single time to be able to express myself. By the end of my freshman year here at McCallum, I had been nominated as a person to participate in the American National Mathematics examination, and I placed very well inside of that. I've been highlighted as an orchestra student, and I was also awarded a an African American Excellence in Education Award last February. I say this not to encourage myself or necessarily to encourage other students to go as far as I'm going, but I do want to show you guys that I am part of both worlds. I understand what the academic community is like, and I understand what the Fine Arts Academy community is like. I'm an excellent student inside of both. And so when I look around and I see all these Fine Arts Academy students here to be able to support us, and all of these normal students from just McCallum High School here to support this as well, I'm very happy, and I'm also very sad. It's very unfortunate, and I think a lot of these students are kind of saying, we don't want any budget cuts, and that's quite unfortunate. But I would encourage this board to make sure that they don't cut from the Fine Arts Academy, and I guess that's kind of my bias. Fine arts have connected people for years, and I think they're very important. Thank you.
Our third speaker for the evening is Karen Foster.
Hi, I am an Anderson vertical team parent, and I'm here tonight to advocate for our teachers. We heard Nicole Conley talk about the fact that everybody wants teachers to have raises. We're not even looking at that in the cuts that are being considered by this task force. I don't know how many of you guys are aware, but they're currently considering the possibility of, for secondary school, secondary level school, so middle school and high school, not only increasing class sizes, but also going from a 6 of 8 to a 7 of 8 teaching schedule. What that means is that your teachers will get one planning period every other day to plan for your kids. And when I talk about planning for your kids, that means planning curriculum, mentoring, tutoring, the actual teaching of 7 classes, grading work. Imagine both sides, AP History or regular English. Imagine that teacher trying in one planning period every other day to grade 200 plus essays, or really work with kids that are struggling with their English class. I mean, this is affecting all of our students. You know, and people say, oh, it's just IB, it's just this. No, it's every student. And it's our teachers. How can we possibly expect to retain the talented people that we have working in our school district if we keep on telling them we undervalue them? You know, we expect you to do more and more and more for the same money or less. What kind of message does that send? We talked about the fact that the surrounding areas pay at least as much, if not more, and they're not asking our teachers to do this. So what is the cost, the hidden cost here? The hidden cost is turnover. We are losing these experienced, talented teachers. I mean, there is real potential here. And we're not talking about 1 or 2. We're talking about a lot of teachers walking away from AISD, walking away from our kids. So please, you know, continue coming here, continue talking to this board, and let them know that's not what we want for our teachers, and it's not what we want for our kids.